Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books, where we get our little dose of transcendental ecstasy every day that keeps us going. Okay. We're going to jump right into the reading after we read Sanatana Goswami's prayer, a daily dose of Srila Sanatana Goswami's Sangha, glorifying the Srimad-Bhagavatam. It goes like this. Sarva Shastra Dipi Yusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaja Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad-Bhagavata Prabhu Kalidwandodita Ditya Shri Krishna Parivartita. O life, air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad-Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshakshadayate Sridhara Savatedaya Shri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madikabando Matsangin Madguru Mad Mahadana Mad Nishtadhanga Mad Bhagya Mad Anandana Mostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu sadutadayin atini chochatakara hanamunchagadachin mam premna retkanta yaspura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Okay, we reached the 4th canto, 23rd chapter. Maharaja Prthu's going back to home. Text 1 to 3. She's going to practice her English. She told me that she wanted to practice her English.
She came today?
Yeah, no, she's been cleaning the room. Practicar inglés. ¿No? Por practicar su inglés. Oh, muy bien.
We are friends.
Okay, you're everyone's friend. I don't know anyone who's not your friend. Maybe somebody who hasn't met you yet, that's all. Okay. At the last stage of his life, when Maharaj Prthu saw himself getting old, that great soul who was king of the world divided whatever opulence he had accumulated amongst all kinds of living entities, moving and non-moving. He arranged pensions for everyone according to religious principles, and after executing the orders of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in complete coordination with him, he dedicated his sons unto the earth, which was considered to be his daughter. When Maharaj Prthu left the presence of his citizens, who were almost lamenting and crying from feeling separation from the king, and went to the forest alone with his wife to perform austerities. Purport. Maharaj Prthu was one of the Shaktiavesh incarnations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And as such, he appeared on the surface of the earth to execute the orders of the Supreme. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, the Supreme Lord is the proprietor of all planets, and he is always anxious to see that in each and every planet, the living entities are happily living and executing their duties. As soon as there is some discrepancy in the execution of duties, the Lord appears on earth as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 4:7. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata. Since there were so many discrepancies during the reign of King Bena, the Lord sent his most confidential devotee, Maharaja Prthu, to settle things. Thereafter, after executing the orders of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and settling the affairs of the world, Maharaj Prthu was ready to retire. He had been exemplary in his governmental administration, and now he was to become exemplary in his retirement. He divided all his property amongst his sons and appointed them to rule the world. And then he went to the forest with his wife. It is significant in this connection that it is said that Maharaj Prthu retired alone and at the same time took his wife with him. According to Vedic principles, when retiring from family life, one can take his wife with him, for the husband and wife are considered to be one unit. This is the path that Maharaj Prthu, who was an exemplary character, followed, and this is also the way of Vedic civilization. One should not simply remain at home until the time of death, but should separate from family life at a timely moment and prepare himself to go back to Godhead. As a Shaktivesh incarnation of God, who had actually come from Vaikuntha as a representative of Krishna, Maharaj Prthu was certain to go back to Godhead. Nonetheless, in order to set the example in all ways, he also underwent severe austerities in the Tapovana. It appears that in those days there were many Tapovanas, or forests, especially meant for retirement and the practice of austerities. Indeed, it was compulsory for everyone to go to the Tapovana to fully accept the shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For it is very difficult to retire from family life and at the same time remain at home. Text 4. After retiring from family life, Maharaj Prthu strictly followed the regulations of retired life and underwent severe austerities in the forest. He engaged in these austere activities as seriously as he had formerly engaged in leading the government and conquering everyone. Purport. As it is necessary for one to become very active in family life, similarly, after retirement from family life, it is necessary to control the mind and senses. This is possible when one engages himself fully in the devotional service of the Lord. Actually, the whole purpose of the Vedic system, the Vedic social order, is to enable one to ultimately return home, back to Godhead. The Grihastha ashram is a sort of concession, combining sense gratification with a regulative life. It is to enable one to easily retire in the middle of life and engage fully in austerities in order to transcend material sense gratification once and for all. Therefore, in the vanaprastha stage of life, tapasya, or austerity, is strongly recommended. Maharaj Prthu followed exactly all the rules of vanaprastha life, which is technically known as Vaikhanasa ashrama. The word Vaikhanasa, susamate, is significant because in vanaprastha life the regulated principles are also to be strictly followed. In other words, Maharaj Prthu was an ideal character in every sphere of life. Mahajano, Yenakata, Sapanta. One should follow in the footsteps of great personalities. Thus, by following the exemplary character of Maharaj Prthu, one can become perfect in all respects while living this life or while retiring from active life. Thus, after giving up this body, one can become liberated and go back to Godhead. Text 5. In the Tapovana, Maharaj Prthu sometimes ate the trunks and roots of trees. Sometimes he ate fruit and dried leaves, and for some weeks he drank only water. Finally, he lived simply by breathing air. Purport. In Bhagavad Gita, yogis are advised to go to a secluded place in the forest and live alone in a sanctified spot there. By Prthu Maharaja's behavior, we can understand that when he went to the forest, he did not eat any cooked food sent from the city or by some devotees or disciples. As soon as one takes a vow to live in the forest, he must simply eat roots, tree trunks, fruits, dried leaves, or whatever nature provides in that way. Prthu Maharaj strictly adopted these principles for living in the forest, and sometimes he ate nothing but dried leaves and drank nothing but a little water. Sometimes he lived on nothing but air, and sometimes he ate some fruit from the trees. In this way he lived in the forest and underwent severe austerities, especially in regards to eating. In other words, overeating is not at all recommended for one who wants to progress in spiritual life. Sri Rupa Goswami also warns that too much eating is too much endeavor, atyahara prayashas cha, are against the principles by which one can advance in spiritual life. It is also notable that according to Vedic injunction, to live in the forest is to live in the mode of complete goodness, whereas to live in the city is to live in the mode of passion, and to live in the brothel or drinking house is to live in the mode of ignorance. However, to live in a temple is to live in Vaikuntha, which is transcendental to all the modes of material nature. This Krishna consciousness movement affords one the opportunity to live in the temple of the Lord, which is as good as Vaikuntha. Consequently, a Krishna conscious person does not need to go to the forest and artificially try to imitate Maharaj Prthu or the great sages and munis who used to live in the forest. Srila Rupa Goswami, after retiring from his minister's seat in the government, went to Vrindavan and lived beneath a tree, like Maharaj Prthu. Since then, many people have gone to Vrindavan to imitate Rupa Goswami's behavior. Instead of advancing in spiritual life, many have fallen into material habits, and even in Vrindavan have become victims of illicit sex, gambling, and intoxication. The Krishna consciousness movement has been introduced in the Western countries, but it is not possible for Westerners to go to the forest and practice the severe austerities which were ideally practiced by Prthu Maharaj or Rupa Goswami. However, Westerners or anyone else can follow in the footsteps of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur by living in a temple, which is transcendental to residence in a forest, and to vow to accept Krishna Prasad and nothing else, following the regulative principles, and chant 16 rounds daily of the Hare Krishna mantra. In this way, one's spiritual life will never be disturbed. Text 6. Following the principles of forest living and the footsteps of the great sages and munis, Prthu Maharaj accepted 5 kinds of heating processes during the summer season, exposed himself to torrents of rain in the rainy season, and in the winter stood in water up to his neck. He also used to simply lie down on the floor to sleep. Purport. These are some of the austerities executed by the jnanis and yogis who cannot accept the process of bhakti yoga. They must undergo such severe types of austerity in order to become purified from material contamination. Panchatapa refers to 5 kinds of heating processes. One is enjoined to sit within a circle of fire with flames blazing from 4 sides and the sun blazing directly overhead. This is one kind of pancha tapa, recommended for austerity. Similarly, in the rainy season, one is enjoined to expose himself to torrents of rain, and in the winter, to sit in cold water up to the neck. As far as bedding is concerned, the ascetic should be content with simply lying on the floor. The purpose for undergoing such severe austerities is to become a devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, as explained in the next verse, text 7. Maharaj Prthu underwent all these severe austerities in order to control his words and senses, to refrain from discharging his semen, and to control the life within his body, life air within his body. All this he did for the satisfaction of Krishna. He had no other purpose. Purport. In Kali Yuga, the following is recommended. Harinama, Harinama, Harinama eva kevalam, kalo nasteva, 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 gatiranyata. In order to be recognized by Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one should chant the holy name of the Lord continuously, 24 hours a day. Unfortunate persons who cannot accept this formula prefer to execute some type of pseudo-meditation without accepting the other processes of austerity. The fact is, however, that one must accept either the severe method of austerity described above to become purified, or to take to the process of devotional service recommended for pleasing the Supreme Lord Krishna. The person who is Krishna conscious is most intelligent, because in Kali Yuga it is not at all possible to undergo such severe austerities. We need only follow great personalities like Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In his Shikshastaka, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wrote, Padam Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam. All glories to the holy names of Lord Krishna, from which from the very beginning purify the heart and immediately liberate one. Bhavamaha Davagni Nirvapanam. If the real purpose of all yoga is to please Lord Krishna, then this simple bhakti yoga system recommended for this age is sufficient. It is necessary, however, to engage constantly in the service of the Lord. Although Prthu Maharaj executed his austerities long before the appearance of Lord Krishna on this planet, his purpose was still to please Krishna. That's a good point. Although Prthu Maharaj executed his austerities long before the appearance of Lord Krishna on this planet, his purpose was still to please Krishna. There are many fools who claim that worship of Krishna began only about 5,000 years ago, after the appearance of Lord Krishna in India. But this is not a fact. Prthu Maharaj worshipped Krishna millions of years ago, for Prthu happened to be a descendant of the family of Maharaja Dhruva, who reigned for 36,000 years during the Satya Yuga age. Unless his total lifespan was 100,000 years, how could Dhruva Maharaj reign over the world for 36,000 years? The point is that Krishna worship existed at the beginning of the creation, and has continued to exist throughout Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, and now it is continuing in Kali Yuga. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna appears not only in this millennium of Brahma's life, but in every millennium. Therefore, worship of Krishna is conducted in all millenniums. It is not that Krishna worship began only when Krishna appeared on this planet 5,000 years ago. This is a foolish conclusion that is not substantiated by Vedic literatures. Also of significance in this verse are the words Arira Dayishu Krishnam acharat tapa uttamam. Maharaj Prthu underwent severe types of austerities for the express purpose of worshipping Krishna. Krishna is so kind, especially in this age, that he appears in the transcendental vibration of his holy name. As it is said in the Narada Pancharatra, Aradito yadi haris tapasa tata kim. If Krishna is worshipped, if he is the goal of advancement, there is no need for one to execute severe types of tapasya, because one has already reached his destination. If after executing all types of tapasya, one cannot reach Krishna, all his tapasya has no value. For without Krishna, all austerity is simply wasted labor. Shrama eva hi kevalam. We should therefore not be discouraged just because we cannot go to the forest and practice severe austerities. Our life is so short that we must strictly adhere to the principles laid down by the Vaishnava Acharyas and peacefully execute Krishna consciousness. There is no need to become despondent. Narottam Das Thakur recommends Anande Bala Hari Bhaja Vrindavan Shri Guru Vaishnava Pade Majaya Man. For a transcendental blissful life, chant the Hare Krishna mantra. Come worship the holy place of Vrindavan and always engage in the service of the Lord, of the spiritual master, and of the Vaishnavas. This Krishna consciousness movement is therefore very safe and easy. We have only to execute the order of the Lord and fully surrender unto Him. We have only to execute the order of the spiritual master, preach Krishna consciousness, and follow in the path of the Vaishnavas. The spiritual master represents both Lord Krishna and the Vaishnavas. Therefore, by following the instructions of the spiritual master and by chanting Hare Krishna, everything will be all right. Text 8. Gradually became steadfast in spiritual life and completely free of all desires for fruitive activities. He also practiced breathing exercises to control his mind and senses, and by such control he became completely free from all desires for fruitive activity. Purport. The word pranayama is very important in this verse because the Hatha yogis and Ashtanga yogis practice pranayama, but generally they do not know the purpose behind it. The purpose of pranayama, or mystic yoga, is to stop the mind and senses from engaging in fruitive activities. The so-called yogis who practice in Western countries have no idea of this. The aim of pranayama is not to make the body strong and fit for working hard. The aim is worship of Krishna. In the previous verse, it was specifically mentioned that whatever austerity, pranayama, and mystic yoga practices. In the previous verse, it was specifically mentioned that whatever austerity, pranayama, and mystic yoga practices Prthu Maharaj performed were performed for the sake of worshipping Krishna. Thus, Prthu Maharaj serves as a perfect example for yogis also. Whatever he did to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The minds of those who are addicted to fruitive activity are always filled with unclean desires. Fruitive activities are symptomatic of our polluted desire to dominate material nature. As long as one continues to be subject to polluted desires, he has to accept one material body after another. So-called yogis, without knowledge of the real purpose of yoga, practice it in order to keep the body fit. Thus they engage themselves in fruitive activities, and thus they are bound by desire to accept another body. They are not always aware that the ultimate goal of life is to approach Krishna. In order to save such yogis from wandering throughout the different species of life, the Shastras warn that in this age, such yogic practice is simply a waste of time. The only means of elevation is the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. King Prithu's activities took place in Satya Yuga, and in this age, this practice of yoga is misunderstood by fallen souls who are not capable of practicing anything. Consequently, the Shastras enjoin kalo nastyeva, 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 gatyar anyata. The conclusion is that unless the karmis, jnanis, and yogis come to the point of devotional service to Lord Krishna, their so-called austerities in yoga have no value, naradita. If Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is not worshipped, there is no point in practicing meditational yoga, performing karma yoga, or culturing empiric knowledge. As far as pranayama is concerned, chanting of the holy name of the Lord and dancing in ecstasy are also considered pranayama. In a previous verse, Sanat Kumara instructed Maharaj Prthu to engage constantly in the service of the Supreme Lord Vasudeva. Yat pada pankaja palashak vilasa bhaktya karmashayam gratitam ud grahayanti santaha. Only by worshipping Vasudeva can one become free from the desires of fruitive activities. Outside of worshipping Vasudeva, the yogis and jnanis cannot attain freedom from such desires. Tadvan narikta matayo yatayo pivrudham shroto ganasta madanam bhajabasudevam. Srimad-Bhagavatam 4:22-39. Here the word pranayama does not refer to any ulterior motive. The actual aim is to strengthen the mind and senses in order to engage them in devotional service. In the present age, this determination can be very easily acquired simply by chanting the holy names. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Text 9. Thus, the best amongst human beings, Maharaj Prthu, followed that path of spiritual advancement which was advised by Sanat Kumara. That is to say, he worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Purport. In this verse it is clearly said that Maharaj Prthu, practicing the pranayama yoga system, engaged in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead as advised by the saint Sanat Kumara. In this verse the words Purusham Abhajat Purusharshaba are significant. Purusharshaba refers to Maharaj Prthu, the best amongst human beings. And Purusham refers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The conclusion is that the best man amongst all men engages in the service of the Supreme Person. One Purusha is worshipable, and the other Purusha is the worshipper. When the Purusha who worships the living entity thinks of becoming one with the Supreme Person, he simply becomes bewildered and falls into the darkness of ignorance. As stated by Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita 2:12, all living entities assembled in the battlefield, as well as Krishna himself, were also present in the past as individuals and would continue to be present in the future as individuals also. Therefore, the two Purushas, the living entity and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, never lose their respective identities. Actually, one who is self-realized engages himself in the service of the Lord perpetually, both in this life and in the next. Indeed, for devotees there is no difference between this life and the next. In this life, a neophyte devotee is trained to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and in the next life he approaches that Supreme Person in Vaikuntha and renders the same devotional service. Even for the neophyte devotee, devotional service is considered Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate, Devotional service to the Lord is never considered a material activity. Since he is acting on the Brahmabhuta platform, a devotee is already liberated. He therefore has no need to practice any other type of yoga in order to approach the Brahmabhuta stage. If the devotee adheres strictly to the orders of the spiritual master, follows the rules and regulations, and chants the Hare Krishna mantra, it should be concluded that he is already at the Brahmabhuta stage, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 14:26. Mam chayo bibicharina bhakti yogina sevate sagvanan samati jaitan brahmabhuyaya kalpate. One who is engaged in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, that once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. Text 10. Maharaj Prthu thus engaged completely in devotional service, executing the rules and regulations strictly according to principles, 24 hours daily. Thus his love and devotion unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, developed and became unflinching and fixed. Purport. The word Bhagavad Dharmina indicates that the religious process practiced by Prthu Maharaj was beyond all pretensions. As stated in the beginning of Srimad-Bhagavatam, Dharma Protita Kaitavotra, religious principles that are simply pretentious are actually nothing but cheating. Bhagavad Dharmina is described by Viraraghava Acharya as Nivrita Dharmina, which indicates that it cannot be contaminated by material aspiration. As explained by Srila Rupa Goswami, Anyabhilashita shunyam jnana karma janavritam anukulyana krishnanu shilanam bhaktir uttamaha. When one who is not inspired by material desires and is not contaminated by the processes of fruitive activity and empiric speculation fully engages in the favorable service of the Lord, his service is called Bhagavad Dharma, or pure devotional service. In this verse, the word Brahmani does not refer to the impersonal Brahman. Impersonal Brahman is a subordinate feature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And since impersonal Brahman worshippers desire to merge into the Brahman effulgence, they cannot be considered followers of Bhagavad Dharma. After being baffled in his material enjoyment, the impersonalist may desire to merge into the existence of the Lord, but a pure devotee of the Lord has no such desire. Therefore, a pure devotee is really Bhagavad Dharmi. It is clear from this verse that Maharaj Prthu was never a worshipper of the impersonal Brahman, but was at all times a pure devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Bhagavati Brahmani refers to one who was engaged in devotional service to the Personality of Godhead. A devotee's knowledge of the impersonal Brahman is automatically revealed, and he is not interested in merging into the impersonal Brahman. Maharaj Prithu's activities in devotional service enabled him to become fixed and steady in the discharge of devotional activities, without having to take recourse to karma, jnana, or yoga. Text 11. By regularly discharging devotional service, Prthu Maharaj became transcendental in mind and could therefore constantly think of the lotus feet of the Lord. Because of this, he became completely detached and attained perfect knowledge by which he could transcend all doubt. Thus he was freed from the clutches of false ego and the material conception of life. Purport. In the Narada Pancharatra, devotional service to the Lord is likened unto a queen. When a queen gives an audience, many maidservants follow her. The maidservants of devotional service are material opulence, liberation, and mystic powers. The karmis are very much attached to material enjoyment. The jnanis are very anxious to become freed from material clutches. And the yogis are very fond of attaining the 8 kinds of mystic perfection. From the Narada Pancharatra, we understand that if one attains the stage of pure devotional service, he also attains all the opulences derived from fruitive activities, empiric philosophical speculation, and mystic yoga practice. Srila Bilba Mangal Thakur therefore prayed in his Krishna Karnamrita, "My dear Lord, if I have unflinching devotion to you, you become manifest before me personally, and the results of fruitive activity and empiric philosophical speculation, namely religion, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation, become like personal attendants and remain standing before me as if waiting my order." The idea here is that the jnanis, by culture of Brahma Vidya, spiritual knowledge, struggle very hard to get out of the clutches of material nature. But a devotee, by dint of his advancement in devotional service, automatically becomes detached from his material body. When a devotee's spiritual body begins to manifest, he actually enters into his activities in transcendental life. At present we have contacted a material body, the material mind. At present we have contacted a material body, material mind, and material intelligence. But when we become free from these material conditions, our spiritual body, spiritual mind, and spiritual intelligence become manifest. In that transcendental state, a devotee attains all the benefits of karma, jnana, and yoga. Although he never engages in fruitive activities or empiric speculation to attain mystic powers, automatically mystic powers appear in his service. A devotee does not want any kind of material opulence, but such opulence appears before him automatically. He does not have to endeavor for it. Because of his devotional service, he automatically becomes Brahmabhuta. As stated before, this is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 14:26. Mam chayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samutijaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One who is engaged in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. Because of his regular discharge of devotional service, a devotee attains the transcendental stage of life. Since his mind is transcendentally situated, he cannot think of anything but the lotus feet of the Lord. This is the meaning of the word sangsmarana anupurtya. By constantly thinking of the lotus feet of the Lord, the devotee immediately becomes situated in Shuddha Sattva. Shuddha Sattva refers to that platform which is above the modes of material nature, including the mode of goodness. In the material world, the mode of goodness is considered to be representative of the highest perfection. But one has to transcend this mode and come to the stage of Shuddha Sattva, or pure goodness, where the 3 qualities of material nature cannot act. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives the following example. If one has strong digestive power, after eating he automatically lights a fire within his stomach to digest everything and does not need to take medicine to aid his digestion. Similarly, the fire of devotional service is so strong that a devotee does not need to act separately to attain perfect knowledge or detachment from material attraction. A jnani may become detached from material attractions by prolonged discussions on subject of knowledge, and may in this way finally come to the Brahmabhuta stage. But a devotee does not have to undergo so much trouble. By virtue of his devotional service, he attains the Brahmabhuta stage without a doubt. The yogis and jnanis are always doubtful about their constitutional position. Therefore, they mistakenly think of becoming one with the Supreme. However, a devotee's relationship with the Supreme becomes manifest beyond all doubts. Beyond all doubt. And he immediately understands that his position is that of eternal servant of the Lord. Jnanis and yogis without devotion may think themselves liberated, but actually their intelligence is not as pure as that of a devotee. In other words, the jnanis and yogis cannot become factually liberated unless they become elevated to the position of devotees. The jnani and yogis may rise to the highest perfection, Brahman realization, but because of their lack of devotion under the lotus feet of the Lord, they again fall down into material nature. Therefore, jnana and yoga should not be accepted as the real processes for liberation. By discharging devotional service, Maharaj Prthu automatically transcended all these positions. Since Maharaj Prthu was a Shaktivesh incarnation of the Supreme Lord, he did not have to act in any way to attain liberation. He came from the Vaikuntha world, or spiritual sky, in order to execute the will of the Supreme Lord on earth. Consequently, he was to return home back to Godhead without having to execute jnana, yoga, or karma. Although Prthu Maharaj was eternally a pure devotee of the Lord, he nonetheless adopted the process of devotional service in order to teach the people in general the proper process for executing the duties of life and ultimately returning home, back to Godhead. Text 12. When he became completely free from the conception of bodily life, Maharaj Prthu realized Lord Krishna sitting in everyone's heart as the Paramatma. Being thus able to get instructions from him, he gave up all other practices of yoga and jnana. He was not even interested in the perfection of the yoga and jnana systems, for he thoroughly realized that devotional service to Krishna is the ultimate goal of life, and that unless the yogis and jnanis become attracted to Krishna Katha, narrations about Krishna, their illusions concerning existence can never be dispelled. Purport. As long as one is too much absorbed in the bodily conception of life, he becomes interested in many different processes of self-realization, such as the mystic yoga system, or the system utilizing the speculative empiric methods. However, when one understands that the ultimate goal of life is to approach Krishna, he realizes Krishna within everyone's heart, and therefore helps everyone who is interested in Krishna consciousness. Actually, the perfection of life depends on one's inclination to hear about Krishna. I'll say that again, just in case you didn't hear it. Actually, the perfection of life depends on one's inclination to hear about Krishna. Congratulations to all those present, especially the regulars that are here every night. It is therefore mentioned in this verse, Yavad Gada Grajakata Suratim Nakuryat. Unless one becomes interested in Krishna, in his pastimes and activities, there is no question of liberation by means of yoga practice or speculative knowledge. Having attained to the stage of devotion, Maharaj Prthu became uninterested in the practices of jnana and yoga and abandoned them. This is the stage of pure devotional life as described by Rupa Goswami. Anyabhilashita shunyam jnana karma yaravritam anukulyana krishnanu shilanam bhaktir uttama. Real jnana means understanding that the living entity is the eternal servant of the Lord. This knowledge is attained after many, many births, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 7:19. Bahunam janmanam ante jnanavam mam prapadyate. In the Paramahansa stage of life, one fully realizes Krishna as everything. Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samahatma Sudurlabhaha. When one understands fully that Krishna is everything and that Krishna consciousness is the highest perfection of life, he becomes a Paramahansa or Mahatma. Such a Mahatma or Paramahansa is very rare to find. A Paramahansa or pure devotee is never attracted by Hatha Yoga or speculative knowledge. He is simply interested in the unalloyed devotional service of the Lord. Sometimes one who was formerly addicted to these processes tries to perform devotional service and the jnana and yoga practices at the same time. But as soon as one comes to the unalloyed stage of devotional service, he is able to give up all other methods of self-realization. In other words, when one firmly realizes Krishna as the supreme goal, he is no longer attracted by mystic yoga practice or the speculative empirical methods of knowledge. Text 13. In due course of time, when Prthu Maharaj was to give up his body, he fixed his mind firmly on the lotus feet of Krishna, and thus, completely situated on the Brahmabhuta platform, he gave up the material body. Purport. According to a Bengali proverb, whatever spiritual progress one makes in life will be tested at the time of death. In Bhagavad Gita 8:6, it is also confirmed, Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajanjante kalevaram tam tam evaiti konteya sada tad bhava bhavitaha. Those who are practicing Krishna consciousness know that their examination will be held at the time of death. If one can remember Krishna at death, he is immediately transferred to Goloka Vrindavan, or Krishna Loka, and thus his life becomes successful. Prthu Maharaj, by the grace of Krishna, could understand that the end of his life was near, and thus he became very jubilant and proceeded to completely give up his body on the Brahmabhuta stage, by practicing the yogic process. It is thoroughly described in the following verses how one can voluntarily give up this body and return home, back to Godhead. The yogic process practiced by Prthu Maharaj at the time of death accelerates the giving up of this body while one is in sound health physically and mentally. Every devotee desires to give up the body while it is sound physically and mentally. This desire was also expressed by King Kulashekar in his Mukunda Malastotra. Krishna Tudiya Patapang Kachapang Chadantam Advaiva Me Vishatumana Saraja Hangsaha Prana Pranaya Prana Prayana Samaye Kapavata Pitai Kanta Varodana Vidao Smaranam Kutaste. King Kulashekar wanted to give up his body while in a healthy state, and thus he prayed to Krishna to let him die immediately while he was in good health and while his mind was sound. When a man dies, he is generally overpowered by mucus and bile, and thus he chokes. Since it is very difficult to vibrate any sound while choking, it is simply by Krishna's grace that one can chant Hare Krishna at the time of death. And then you become a pure devotee of the ISKCON movement, and if you do, when you die, you'll be surrounded by devotees chanting in your ear as loud as they can.
It didn't matter if you're choking on.
We have video evidence now. When Gunamagari Maharaj left, Govinda Maharaj was right there in his ear, yelling at the top of his lungs. There was no way he could forget, by the mercy of the Vaishnavas. That is the real friendship. that is the real pure devotional service, the real goal of life. Okay, I'll read that again. When a man dies, he is generally overpowered by mucus and bile, and thus he chokes. Since it is very difficult to vibrate any sound while choking, it is simply by Krishna's grace that one can chant Hare Krishna at the time of death. However, by situating oneself in the Muktasana position, a yogi can immediately give up his body and go to whatever planet he desires. A perfect yogi can give up his body whenever he desires through the practice of yoga. So that's real yoga. Hare Krishna. We'll stop there. Our reading tonight on the practice of Bhakti Yoga. And notice that he was doing, don't use this, don't put your hand in your mouth and then touch the book. What's in the mouth is not clean. The book is pure. Okay, so, it's interesting, isn't it? That it was talking all about how he was doing pure devotional service and how pure devotional service is better than mystic yoga, and yet right at the end it said he did mystic yoga. So this is a little, it seems contradictory or counterintuitive, so I will just comment just because I thought of it at the end. So this is I'm starting the reflection tonight. That is that in each age there's an actual Yuga Dharma that's recommended for the perfection. And in each age, the perfection was chanting Hare Krishna. But you get there through different methods. And in the Kali Yuga, by Lord Chaitanya's grace, the very method is the end. You get the end at the beginning. In other words, the means of achieving the goal is the goal itself. That's how lucky we are, that we came on the earth only 500 years after Lord Chaitanya and got this benediction that even if we can't do all these yoga positions and air control and all those things, what do they call the air controllers and the towers, and we don't have any air controller inside to be able to go to the planet we want to go to and all of this. We don't need it. All we need to do is chant Hare Krishna at our time of death. Then hear the Bhagavatam. Because hear the Bhagavatam. When the heart becomes purified by chanting Hare Krishna, you want to hear not only the Hare Krishna mantra, but also the Srimad-Bhagavatam. I'll end my comment there and yield to the member of all right. Go ahead.
I have 2 questions. My first question is, why can't Westerners go to the forest and practice austerities if we're not the body?
They can, but they won't.
I wanted to.
But you didn't.
Because I found you.
Oh. Anyway, I'm deeply touched by that outburst of devotion. that public outburst from this. What was the word I used? The impetuous one. Yeah, but we could, but why should we? Why should we go to that kind of trouble when we can chant Hare Krishna and live together and hear together in a room like this and get the same result? We have to be less intelligent. It's like Prabhupada used to use the example, you can touch your nose like this, or you can touch your nose like this. And my arm is so short. I have very short arms, and I can't do that, even if as much as I tried. Yeah, see? But I can't. So you can do, you got it? What else? Oh, 2, that's right. All right, you get your bonus. Go ahead.
Is it weird to have an underlying excitement to die?
It's not normal. But at the same time, it's not weird. It's not weird for a devotee if we heard the reason why. Because a devotee wants to leave the body when one's strong and has a strong mind and strong body, so that he can just go back, Why should he go through this degrading, old age and getting older and more decrepit and not be able to walk and move as quickly and eventually be a vegetable, not a vegetable, but debilitated in some way or another, which is what happens at old age. You can't escape it. And then if you try to leave your body by force in order to escape it, then you get into a worse body, a worse situation. So that's it, laws of nature, we're stuck. We're not free. We're not free. So the whole point is that it's not that we can just make up what we want to do. Lord Prthu Maharaj wasn't making up what he wanted to do. He was following the process for that age. That was the process for that age. If you follow in the footsteps of the great souls, and Lord Chaitanya taught us how to follow in the great souls in this age of Kali Yuga, and if we do that, then we're successful. If we depend on the strength of our own body and mind and try to do those kinds of austerities, in this age, we'll just fail. We won't be able to do it. And this is sure thing. So why take a sure thing? Not? Why not?
It's not me.
In that case,
I lied, it is me. No, I'm just joking. You said that, this is Sudevi Dasi.
Hare Krishna Sudevi Dasi. Hare Go. I think she's in Amsterdam.
You said that Krishna is worshipped in every millennium, so there must be spiritual masters then also? ? My question is, does Srila Prabhupada appear in other millenniums, or did he go back home when his mission was accomplished in this age?
When Prabhupada was asked that question, he just looked and said, that is not necessary. Krishna is sending pure devotees in every millennium, every place, to help us, and there's at least one on the planet all the time. Even at the end of the Kali Yuga, when everyone is become animalistic and not devotees, there's always at least one, and then Kalki takes birth from that father and mother.
Can I comment on that?
I want to let somebody else have a comment. Thank you. Yes. Sarva.
Prabhupada mentions a couple times that the word Brahmabhuta, it's in the verses, and he quotes a Gita verse, not sure, from the 14th chapter. Yeah. So Prabhupada says here that just by performing devotional service, you'll come to the spiritual Brahman platform, the Brahmabhuta platform. It seems like, I might be wrong, but it seems like in other places he sometimes says that you have to be on the Brahmabhuta platform to really do devotional service properly. So can you comment on that?
The Brahmabhuta platform is the beginning. It's not the end. The Brahmabhuta platform means that one becomes free from the influence of the modes of material nature and actually wants and understands and wants Krishna consciousness and wants Krishna. So therefore, Prabhupada sometimes defines the Brahmabhuta platform as the essential requirement to to perform devotional service. But like I said, the Brahmabhuta platform is contained within Bhakti Yoga, but Bhakti Yoga is not necessarily contained within the Brahmabhuta platform. Person is Brahman realized as Brahmabhuta. But he might not have love of God. He might not be eligible to go back to the spiritual world and engage in loving affairs with Krishna eternally. But he has to be Brahmabhuta in order to be able to aspire for and achieve that platform.
And when that verse is used in the Gita, it seems that Arjuna just followed Krishna's instructions, but didn't do a process of chanting japa or meditation or some sadhana, but his sadhana was just to serve Krishna's instructions.
Yeah, well, if you have the good fortune to actually be with Krishna face to face, and he says, do this, then you automatically attain perfection if you do it. Thank you. Lord Chaitanya Krishna came to us in the form of Lord Chaitanya and told us to chant Hare Krishna. And on top of that, the Hare Krishna mantra is the incarnation of Krishna in the Kali Yuga that has come to deliver us. There is no difference between the Hare Krishna mantra and the Swayam Rupa form of Krishna. They're all intimidated by you. They don't want to. Jeez.
Hare Krishna, kindly accept my obeisance, all goes to Gurudev Prabhupada. Regarding the Mataji's question about various spiritual masters in various ages, because we had recently read about Dhruva Maharaj, and he had a spiritual master, Narada Muni. Like that, every devotee has a spiritual master, not only in our age, but all the ages. And of course, Prabhupada, being an eternal associate of Krishna, I'm sure he's present in various times also, according to wishes of Krishna. Only thing we do not know. Hare Krishna.
I mean, Srila Prabhupada wrote a Vyasa Puja offering to Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, I believe in 1935 or 36. And he began his offering by saying that there's only one spiritual master, and that's Krishna. So that doesn't mean that the spiritual master is literally Krishna, the original form and personality of Krishna. But it means that a person who actually agrees to surrender to Krishna, give his life to Krishna, and, as I always say, deliver the mail, without, taking the envelope out and taking the check out or adding something else in or whatever, but just gives the mail. It's against the law, actually, to tamper with the mail. Isn't it? In this country, it's against the law. It's a federal offense, actually, to tamper with the law, to tamper with the mail. So, in that way, Krishna speaks through the spiritual master, and also because the spiritual master dedicates his life to helping others come to Krishna, which is what Krishna really wants, then he becomes very dear to Krishna. Shakshad Darit Tvena Samasta Shastra. We sing this every morning in Mangalarti. Sakshad Darit Tvena Shastra Yuktastita Priya. he's dear to Krishna, and that's why he's considered to be not different than Krishna. Not that he's Krishna. So in that sense, I mean, it's not that Prabhupada is the only spiritual master, and he goes everywhere and is every place all the time. But Krishna does that through different persons. And sometimes we hear the idea that that the spiritual master who initiates us is our eternal spiritual master. That may or not be true in terms of that individual soul, but it is true in the sense that it's always Krishna.
This is from Rati Manjari.
Hey Rati, she's on her way to Mount Mayapur and to be with the Vaisheshika Prabhu's Yatra.
Haribo. Dear Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. While we are still under the modes of nature, how can we tell the difference between over-endeavoring and enthusiasm in devotional service?
When you over-endeavor, you lose your enthusiasm. When you over-endeavor, you lose your enthusiasm for anything, especially Krishna consciousness. So you can tell you're over-endeavoring when you lose your taste for Krishna consciousness. In general, we should accept those things that are favorable and reject those things that are unfavorable for the development or progress of our Krishna consciousness. So how we can tell what to accept and reject is when whatever that thing is, or person, or event, or whatever place, or activity causes us to become agitated materially, lusty, or greedy, or angry, or, just, weakened in our faith. So it's harder to chant, harder to hear. We don't want to hear anymore. We don't want to chant. We lose our taste. Then whatever it is that's causing that to happen, we should reject it. And if that person happens to be dear or related or whatever, or it's the place where you live or somebody in the place, then just distance yourself and offer respect from a distance. You don't have to feel ill about anybody. We shouldn't feel ill towards anyone. I'll read the verse. Just to show you that I'm not making it up. Just in case you think I'm making something up. I'll read the verse. Or the purport. Verse and purport. This is in the 12th chapter. In the last few verses of the 12th chapter, Krishna says, particularly, what pleases him. Yes. He by whom no one is put into difficulty and who is not disturbed by anyone, who is equipoised in happiness and distress, fear and anxiety, is very dear to me. So notice, Krishna never says that one becomes free from anxiety or free from difficulty. He says one who is not disturbed or equipoised in happiness and distress, fear and anxiety. These things are part and parcel of the material world. You can't avoid them, but you don't have to be disturbed by them. So how you respond is the measure of our situation. Whose phone is that? Is it? Okay, I'm going to read the purport. May I?
Deliver that mail.
Okay, here's the letter. I just opened it up. I'm just going to read it. A few of a devotee's qualifications are further being described. No one is put into difficulty, anxiety, fearfulness, or dissatisfaction by such a devotee. Since a devotee is kind to everyone, he does not act in such a way as to put others into anxiety. At the same time, if others try to put a devotee into anxiety, he is not disturbed. It is by the grace of the Lord that he is so practiced that he is not disturbed by any outward disturbance. Actually, because a devotee is always engrossed in Krishna consciousness and engaged in devotional service, such material circumstances cannot move him. Generally, a materialistic person becomes very happy when there is something for his sense gratification in his body, but when he sees that others have something for their sense gratification and he hasn't, he is very sorry and envious. When he is expecting some retaliation from an enemy, he is in a state of fear. And when he cannot successfully execute something, he becomes dejected. A devotee who is always transcendental to all these disturbances is very dear to Krishna. So there it is again and again, practice. Even if you're not like that, practice like you are, act like you are. Even if there's a cause for disturbance and inside you're going, "Wah!" Just act like you're not. That is the mystic potency of Bhakti Yoga. And therefore, as we heard from the Prthu Maharaj pastime, therefore all these other perfections will come and be your servants. They'll stand there and say, what can I do for you? Therefore you see, when Prabhupada was tested, he had nothing in Vrindavan. He had nothing, not even hardly a piece of cloth. But when he came to do his the mission of his spiritual master, and he needed things, he got so many things and so many followers and so much wealth and so much, love and affection in so many ways. It was like, and he didn't do anything to achieve any of those things. He just tried to execute the order of his spiritual master, and all those things came automatically.
Purity of
Huh?
That's the purity of his devotion.
Yes. Okay, I'm going to stop now. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. Thank you, all of you. And thank you, all of you out there in cyberspace. And we'll see you tomorrow night. Same station, same time, as we do every single night without fail. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. Hari Hari Bol.